Yummy like a gummy bear.
Hey everybody, welcome to Game Mess Mornings with me, Jeff Grubb, your host from giantbomb.com. Thank you for tuning in. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Death Stranding 2 reviews and why you might want to check that Switch 2 before buying it on Craigslist. It's going to be a good one because we have Jason Fanelli on the show, which is brought to you by Kind of Funny. Why not? I'm going to read this again. I left it here from the first week. But first, Jason, how are you doing?
I'm apparently brought to you by Kind of Funny.
Jason is brought to you by Kind of Funny. That's right.
I didn't know.
I'm dead over here, man. I'm dealing with it. I was telling you I didn't fall asleep till 5 a.m. For no good reason. And you were like, I was just getting up to work out. So let's bring this different energy throughout. Maybe we'll cause a video game tornado as our high pressure and low pressure system mixes together here.
Yes, big singularity of video games here. No, I'm doing well. Thank you. Shout out to Greg Miller, who didn't know I worked for him, and I didn't know I worked for him either. But
surprise.
Had to make some lemonade out of some lemons over this past weekend. Was supposed to be at MagicCon in Las Vegas, and a big storm rolled through the Philly area on Thursday night and canceled my flight. So turned it into a family weekend. I guess my wife could sense my sadness or disappointment, whatever you would call that, and kind of got it out of my head. Let me just deal with it my own way. We did some family things, had 2 birthday parties that helped as well. I played a video game. I was saying before the show started with my free time. Actually started and finished a video game, which is something. Everyone should play MEO the Smiling Man, and it should be the next thing you play. It's a rudimentary game, as I said. It's a lot of just picking choices in menus to move the conversation along. Using the think or review function a lot just to go through and basically figure out where you are in the story. But man, it's a good story. Kept me guessing the entire time. And as I mentioned, the epilogue of the game, after the credits roll, there's an epilogue, and you'll know you're there because the title of the game changes. No spoilers. And you play that epilogue for it's 20 minutes, and it's just dialogue. You don't have to do anything. There's no piecing clues together. You're just selecting continue, and the conversation continues. And then part of it is a 10-minute anime episode that you watch, fully animated, looks great, but it completely and creepily recontextualizes the entire 12-chapter story you had just seen in 20 minutes. It is wild. It's one of those things that I'm going to dwell on and think about for quite a bit. Play MEO the Smiling Man, please.
Did you ever play the Famicom Detective Club games?
No, the remakes for Switch sit in the pantheon of games that I like to call purchased but never played. Yeah. I bought them on sale, and then they just sat there on my Switch forever.
This is a successor to that, so maybe it's time to check in on those. Yeah,
maybe it's time. And there is one of the characters who I do know from those games, but not because of those games, because of her Super Smash Brothers trophies. Ayumi Tachibana is your companion detective in this game. So, and they do reference things in those previous games that I was not obviously privy to, but it does make me want to go and find out what is going on there. Maybe it will add a slight bit of context to this, though I will say from front to end and epilogue, this does stand on its own as its own story. I don't think you need that context to be able to play this. Certainly didn't stop me. So if you're thinking about it, there is a demo. You can go check it out, the gameplay, and see if you're okay with how the dialogue piecing together works and the different choices that you can do. But once you figure it out, you get rolling. And like I said, I finished it in a weekend, and it was quite good.
Well, let's do the nerd debate podcast thing. Who would win in a fight, the Smiling Man or the Quiet Man, Jason? You're the expert. You tell us now.
The Smiling Man. Easy.
All right.
Smiling Man is... we're allowed to curse again. I keep forgetting. He's fucked up, but I'll let you find out why.
Let's go. All right. Well, let's explain ourselves and what we do here. This is Giant Bomb. We're a small team. We create video game stuff. We want to create a lot more stuff. We do that with your help. If you go to giantbomb.com/join, you can become a member and support us, and we could do more cool stuff. In fact, now that we got this all going, today, Mike Minotti is going to start Monday mornings Missed with Mitch. And then tonight is Mega Man, and that's an acronym for Monday evenings gaming at Mike's at night. I think that's what it is. Either way, like we're going to be doing stuff like that. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff along those lines, a lot more stuff along the lines of what we did at Summer Game Fest because of your support. That's giantbomb.com/join. Go there, help us out. There's also some info about other ways you could support us there. On this show, however, most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS feed on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Death Stranding 2 on the beach reviews. Game is out soon. Reviews have popped off this morning. Plenty of insights from a lot of people who have been playing the game. And it has a 91 on OpenCritic, which I know has just got to be devastating to Kojima, who wanted the game to be bad. Diego Nicolas Arguello at GameSpot gave it a 7 out of 10 and said Death Stranding 2 on the beach is fixated on revisiting past ideas, which limits its impact to being a good but not great sequel. Giovanni Colantonio at Digital Trends gave it 4 stars and said, even when its faith is shaken like an overloaded porter tripping down a rocky mountain, Death Stranding 2 still stands firm in its belief that we're all better off together no matter what comes next. And then PlayStation Universe's Joe Richards gave it a 9.5 and said, Death Stranding 2 is a triumph in what it sets out to achieve. This isn't a game interested in converting willing consumers into fans. It's a game that takes bold steps in order to succeed what came before it. If you needed proof that Hideo Kojima is still the titan of the industry that he's hailed as, this game is that proof. I was left truly speechless by the end, and I have a feeling that many others will too. I think, so yeah, Dan's been playing a lot of this. I started it. I'm still very early. We'll be talking about it plenty on the Bombcast, but from what I could see, it's like, yeah, they're like all of the good ideas in one have been boiled down to oh, here's just the good stuff. And then he sort of rebuilt the game back up around those good ideas to kind of make the ideal version of Death Stranding here for Death Stranding 2. How excited are you for this game after these reviews?
So there's a post on Blue Sky from Dominic Tarrison that I think kind of boils down what I've gathered from these reviews, and that here's what they say. It's funny to see Death Stranding 2 reviews split into it changes too much, it changes too little, and even a few it doesn't change anything at all. Plus a few it changes all the right stuff from DS1, and it ruined everything I liked. The scores might not be to Kojima's liking, but it sounds like the overall opinions are the exact sort of division that he wanted. In that regard, it sounds like it's going to be very much a Hideo Kojima game, which means it's something that when I finally have the time sometime in 2030, and after I play the first one, I will very much enjoy. Not surprised that it's getting high scores. Also not surprised that the opinions within are a little weird, a little all over the place. That is the hallmark of a Kojima game, after all, has been since Metal Gear. I remember those debates about Metal Gear Solid 2 going the way it did, and then 3 going back in time. He's always done this stuff. So it sounds very much in line to what he wants to do. And frankly, it kind of makes me want to play it a little more. Kind of wants to make me move Death Stranding 1 and now 2 up the backlog list a little bit, just to see how Kojima weird they get. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by any of this. It's exactly what I expected to hear, right down to the 91, now 92, according to Chad, apparently, OpenCritic score.
Wow. Yeah, that's so, as always, it's worth pointing out, the numbers are only so useful. I think they're pretty useful for anyone who's just trying to make a purchasing decision. But when it comes to like tracking how a game's performing on something like OpenCritic, a 91 is very hard to get. 92 is extremely hard to get. Honestly, high 80s is anything up in the high 80s. It's like, oh wow, that's almost never happens. So this is really really high review score. The collective review score, and it does seem like it comes down to, hey, yeah, it's Death Stranding, but they made the combat good. That's been my experience so far, where I can quickly drop everything on my back with the press of a button. I think you just hold down triangle and you drop everything, and then you just pick out your gun, which is a modern military weapon that fires non-lethal bullets, and you can kind of knock everyone out, because if they die, they'll void out whatever. That's still part of the story. The game's like, yeah, sure, just shoot them and then move on. And now combat feels pretty fun. So I'm like, okay. They kind of just dealt with the issues that anyone might have had with the first game, I feel like, so far. But I'm curious to see whether I end up caring about the story. Although, man, I haven't met that puppet yet. As long as I get that puppet in my life, I'm going to be very happy, Jason.
Yeah, I keep forgetting the different trailers that we have watched. There's the puppet. There's Higgs, the guitar man. There, Guitaru Man, I was calling him for a little while. Just a lot of weird Kojima stuff. I love it, and I will correct. I did actually go to Open Critic. It is now a 90 with 60 reviews in.
Yeah,
still nothing to shake a stick at by any means. It's yeah, I mean, the puppet, I need to know everything about this puppet. I need Death Stranding 3 to be called Puppet Stranding. Just more puppet, please. Make it Ape Escape, but make it puppets. I don't care. Whatever you need to do with this guy to put him in every single thing that you could put him in from now on. Every PlayStation game. Just put him in the PlayStation Studios intro for every single game that comes out now. I want to start Intergalactic in 2029, and first thing I see is that face. Or whatever's going on. Puppet Man forever. Yeah, sure. I agree with that.
As we've been playing, like Dan's been like texting me some things that he's been experiencing, because he's been playing a lot of it. And he got to one chapter that apparently was just all about puppets, but he was like confused because he thought it was like going to be a metaphor, like about how like we're all controlled by strings. And then the whole thing turned out to be, no, it's actually just about the puppet guy. Here's all the details about him. And it's like, hell yeah! All right, that's a video game. Yeah, I'm into it. I think. Well, it's my idea of a game anyhow. Of like, hey, make a game about traversal and exploration and walking around and maybe building up infrastructure to make that stuff easier. Yeah, I like roadcraft. I like snow runners. It's my kind of thing anyhow. This game is like, hey, what if we built a Kojima game around those ideas? I'm like, oh, okay, fantastic. I'm all for it. And I think that Death Stranding 2 seems to be like the ideal formulation of those ideas coming together. So, hey, I'm into it. I'm going to be playing a lot more of it. I mean, the first one did pretty well, but it feels like this one with these review scores, now that people have like an idea of what Death Stranding is, it's had years to like kind of build an audience with the original version and then the director's cut and going to different platforms. This game should pop off, right?
I would like to think so. If not solely based on what you said, then based on the names attached to it. There are some, but not just in the gaming space, like Norman Reedus is well known. Margaret Qualley, I think her name is well known. There's a lot of high profile names attached to it that would give it that universal appeal. So even like a casual player who, even like the Madden FIFA type, might say, oh, I know Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead or Boondock Saints or that movie or show that I like. He's in this game. I'll try it just based on that. And if they haven't done so already, maybe Death Stranding 2's reviews will convince them to do so. Because as somebody put out in chat, and I'll look this up too, first one did not score that highly, right?
It was the lower 80s. It was like an 82 or 83, I think, which is not bad.
Right. No, yeah. Not at all. But it wasn't 90, right? 90s,
no.
90s, 83, yes, on Open Critic.
So there's a huge gap there. Every point above that, like 83, is that much harder to get. Yeah.
Right. And that was 200 reviews. So there's still some more reviews to come out. We'll see how this one shakes out. 90 at 60 is still very impressive, but seeing 90 as an average may, switch some light bulbs on that. Oh, maybe this isn't the weird auteur experience that I expected it to be. Maybe this is one that I should keep an eye on.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. I think it has a chance of finding that slightly wider audience. I don't think the appeal will ever be as broad as like a Metal Gear Solid, like what that had, of like something about that, just like, that goes in magazine covers, and when you're a kid and you just see that, you're like, well, I got whatever this is, I got to play this. But even then it had like the name recognition of like, oh, I remember Metal Gear Solid on NES when I was a kid and stuff like that, or Metal Gear, I should say. Death Stranding is never going to have quite that appeal, but I think you're right with this number and just Kojima's name and all the people involved, it should break through, which was the original question. So yeah, I think I agree with you.
And
all right, go ahead.
He's going to hate it because it's not divisive.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, I think you might be onto something like the early kind of like debates. Like maybe it's going to be divisive within that 90 range of it's a great game, but here's the stuff that I like or didn't like or whatever, and those conversations could still happen. Maybe he'll get what he wants in the end. All right, Nintendo prioritizing Switch 2 dev kits for indies needing quote extra oomph, says devs. This is from PJ O'Reilly at Nintendo Life. As we all know by now, the Switch 2 has been off to a rocket of a start in terms of its hardware sales. However, with regards to its current games lineup and with a particular eye on its indie offerings, there's certainly been quite a bit of heavy lifting done by Mario Kart World in these early days and weeks. If you'd been expecting a few more Switch 2 indie offerings at this point, though, you aren't alone. And there's at least a reason for the relatively slow going in these early days. Speaking with GamesIndustry.biz, a bunch of indie devs have been explaining the pre-launch dev kit access situation, with some getting their hands on the necessary tech ages ago, while others are still waiting. Tony Gowland, I'm going to say Gowland from Ant Workshop, the team behind the excellent Into the Restless Ruins, says slow access to dev kits isn't a new thing, and that on the Switch 2, Nintendo seems to be prioritizing games that need the extra grunt. Which I'm not sure what that means, but probably extra power, extra processing power. This tracks when we consider the likes of No Man's Sky with Hello Games, saying they'd been working on the Switch 2 port for a year when they announced the Switch 2 version, as it's a showy example of just how much better a game can be on the new console. In terms of dev kit availability, and this is a quote now, there's been a similar situation to the OG Switch, which was also like hen's teeth for a good 6 to 7 months after launch, said Gowland. The indie folks I know who have been successful in getting kits are working on games that are in need of the Switch 2's extra oomph. Citizen Sleeper 2, which has gone down a treat on Switch 1, they gave it a 9 out of 10 at this site, is one game that it was aiming for a Switch 2 launch, but according to its creator, Gareth Damian Martin, it wasn't possible. Chris Wright, founder and managing editor of Fellow Traveler, publisher of Citizen Sleeper 2, stated that they still don't have dev kits but that this is fairly normal, even if it can be irksome for some indie devs' plans. This just sounds like, maybe Nintendo has limited resources when it comes to this, whether that is actual limited dev kits, which I honestly have no idea, Jason, what it takes to produce a dev kit. Do they have a ton of these things? Is it just a Switch 2 with extra features turned on? Probably not. I really am just stupid about that. But, it could be that, or maybe it could be like Nintendo wants to develop a direct relationship with these people before they hand something like that over. And so they're like just slowly going through that process, which is just a limited resource of time and people at a certain point. So either way, I could see there being a holdup there. But this is a problem that should sort itself out soon enough, right? The Switch 1 quickly became the indie platform of choice. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon with the Switch 2, right?
No, not at all. Once these dev kits get out into the wild where they belong and these developers have the technology in front of them, you should see the Switch 2 go right back to number one in the indie scene before long. I'm surprised by I didn't realize it took 6 or 7 months with the first Switch. That does make sense.
There was a ton of indie games at first, so yeah, I was also a little surprised by that.
I would have thought that even with that delay here, it may have been less. Now, granted, we're not even a month in.
Right.
We're 2 weeks, 3 weeks in. So I would have thought maybe it would be a little bit sooner. Maybe it still can be maybe 2 or 3 months, because Nintendo had to know that indies were huge on its platform and want to support that to keep that going. But I kind of get an indie studio like Hello Games getting access to dev kits before someone like Ant Workshop, which, no offense to Ant Workshop, Into the Restless Ruins apparently is very good.
Yeah.
But Yeah, and sure, it sounds like they're understanding of that too, and they're just waiting patiently for it to happen. I did want to point out that the word extra grunt and hen's teeth made me look up Tony Gallen's country of origin, and he's Scottish. So maybe
it sounds about right. Yeah,
maybe Jordan can explain it to us one day.
One day.
But no, it's surprising at first, but the more you think about it, and the more you realize we're still only 2 weeks in. The biggest studios are going to get these dev kits first. It doesn't mean that the indies aren't going to be a part of Switch 2 like they were at Switch 1. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Patience is a virtue, as they say. So I get it. It's you want to play the new indie games, right? You want to see what these indie devs can do on this new, more powerful console. But I get the frustration with not having those there. Though I will say, as the last time we were on, we were speaking about Koei Tecmo talking about the Switch 2 being more powerful than they thought. This is good news too. The fact that these indie developers this drive to want these dev kits even after launch tells you that even those in the know are aware of what this thing can do and what they can possibly do with it, and it will just make the entire platform stronger as a whole. So I like hearing this. It's frustrating for them. I hope they get their stuff soon, but ultimately, I think it's all positive news. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think it's just it's about a demand and the Switch 2 being a platform where these developers can thrive, and that will be waiting for them as they get their dev kits. In the meantime, if you are one of these studios that may not necessarily need the extra oomph or the extra grunt, you can put your game out on Switch 1 and it'll work on Switch 2. And if you unlock things, it can even take advantage of some of those graphical features. So you still have a way onto the Switch 2. And honestly, for an indie game, a downloadable game in the eShop, I guess maybe not having that Switch 2 badge that you can like paste onto the JPEG of your screen or your cover art, maybe that hurts a little bit because it's like maybe people are looking for that, and that gets them more likely, greases up the wheels to get them to spend more money, I suppose. But really, they're going to see your game on their Switch 2. If it's appealing, they're going to buy it for that reason. So it's not like they're being completely left out in the cold here.
Right, but also too, I think with indie developers specifically, it is well documented that the eShop on Switch 1 is garbage.
Rough. Yeah.
And Switch 2's is better, but not quite there yet.
Yeah.
So that Switch 2 banner that you're speaking of may have more value than initially seems because it will get them front and center on the new eShop. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So if they can make the Switch 2 editions or Switch 2 versions sooner, they get onto the currently more efficient eShop faster. So that makes sense too.
All right. I'm with you on that. And that's like the kind of thing where because there's no discoverability really on the Switch 2 or on the eShop. And I guess it's a little bit improved. I actually, like early on when I was in the hotel room waiting for SGF to start and I had the Switch, I was like making some videos, and one I didn't end up posting was like, hey, they kind of improved the eShop. And really the improvements are it's faster to use, which I'm sure actually does increase the amount of money people spend. Because if it's easier to find stuff, easier to move around in there, you're just more likely to use it, which probably every minute used probably equates to so much more money spent. So yeah, great. But there's also a small discovery tool where it's like, Steam's recommendation thing where it's like a slideshow of games that like, hey, because you played this, maybe you'll like that. The eShop has that now. And that's like the one thing that might resurface games that have fallen off the sales page or the featured page or the new page, which is for a lot of these indie games. They probably are struggling to end up on any of those, those surfaces for people to find. So it's like maybe they can rely on that. But in the meantime, if you do have a Switch 2 version, you're probably much more likely to end up in all that stuff. So you're definitely right. And I don't think it's very far off. Though those dev kits should go out to everybody here pretty soon.
Sure.
All right, next story here. Nintendo's actually, you know what? Before we get to that, it's 11:30. Let's take a break. Let's go to our break. If you don't want to have this, if you want to have the ad-free version, you can always go to giantbomb.com/join. That gets you out of this. We go fade to black. We come right back up. But you didn't do that. So here's our ad.
And that's on.
This episode of Giant Bomb is brought to you by giantbomb.com/join. Join us there, become a member. It helps us make fun stuff. It gets you ad-free content. It also helps us make some extras here and there that we'll give exclusively to you as members. It's giantbomb.com/join for $10 a month or $100 a year, where you save $20. You can support us in making all the cool stuff that we make over here at Giant Bomb. Once again, that's giantbomb.com/join. Become a member now. All right, we're back. It's Game Mess Mornings. I'm Jeff Grubb. That's Jason Fanelli. Let's get back into the show. Nintendo's strict policy on MIG carts is creating a problem for secondhand Switch 2 buyers. This is also from PJ O'Reilly at Nintendo Life. As we reported last week, Nintendo has been banning Switch 2 consoles from using online services if it finds them to be using MIG carts, effectively bricking the new consoles by denying them any online access whatsoever. Nintendo has seemingly decided to come down tough on this issue for its new generations of systems, with social media and internet forums slowly coming alive with users who have been faced with an error code 2124-4508 message. However, a potential knock-on effect is that the secondhand market for Switch 2 consoles may be becoming a bit dodgy, becoming a bit of a dodgy death run, they say, for those seeking a cheaper option on Nintendo's new hardware. As reported by Android Authority, at least one potential Switch 2 owner has shown up online to report that their console, bought at a discount, was actually bricked with the same error code message. Not ideal. Piracy has been a scourge for Nintendo, particularly over the past few years, with some high-profile pre-release leaks. With carts such as the MiG providing a route to play ripped, pirated copies of games, it's perhaps inevitable that potential buyers are going to have to be extra careful going forward. In the case above, where the console was bought at a Walmart, it was an easy case of returning the console for a refund without an issue. Start getting these problems with tech bought on the likes of eBay, Gumtree, or other sites, though, and forking out a secondhand Switch 2 could end up being quite the sweat-inducing prospect. I wonder, okay, so they bought it at Walmart. Maybe someone returned it themselves to Walmart and got repackaged. It was like an open box discount. That must be what happened there. Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens when you buy secondhand. Buying secondhand GPUs for the last 10 years, Jason, has been a roll of the dice of, has this thing been used 24/7 for the last year and a half to mine cryptocurrency? And there's a strong chance the answer to that question is yes. So when you go out and get your good deal on the 1080 Ti back in the day, actually that was right before people were using those GPUs to mine Bitcoin. But the example still stands. Yeah, chances are you were getting something that had been run into the ground. That doesn't mean it doesn't work anymore. And a lot of times those factors were priced into the overall market. At this point, though, that's not happening with the Switch 2 yet. That price is going to be as high as it can be because it's a hot commodity item. Sure, they're more readily available than some consoles have been, so that's helping a little bit. So, like this, people aren't going out there and buying a $2,000 a Switch 2 on eBay just to get their hands on one, and then that turns out to be bricked. But still, no matter what, it's a frustrating thing. And as this person says, if you go to Craigslist, you go to Facebook Marketplace, there's a good chance you could get really screwed there. eBay's like, they go back and forth. I don't know where they're at right now in sort of their oscillation between preferring the buyer versus preferring the seller. But a lot of times they prefer the buyer. And if you just say this thing's messed up, they'll be, here's all your money back, and that the seller has to pay for it. What do people do here, Jason? I mean, you just got to test the thing, right? Before you buy. This is maybe actually where, if you don't want to deal with all the hassle of buying something online, getting it, finding out it's broken, then have to going through some support thing, maybe actually go buying it through Facebook Marketplace, but doing your due diligence and turning it on, connecting it online, making sure it works is probably your best bet. But people are going to have to be safe or be careful here, right?
Yeah, I think due diligence is going to be the order of the day here when it's possible. I would suggest maybe holding off on eBay unless it's a, still in box sort of situation. And even then, you don't know if they were able to crack it open with the, it's basically, if it were me, I would go with patience for a brand new console in a big box store or from Nintendo themselves before secondhand. But I have the luxury of being able to do that. I understand. If you have the luxury of being able to wait, as much as it sucks and as much as FOMO is a thing, that's what I should tell you to do. That's what I'm going to tell you to do. But if you're going to go this secondhand route, do something where you can meet with the seller directly. Stay off of eBay. Stay off of those sites. Make sure when you are face to face with this person that you test everything that you want to test. You make sure it works. You make sure the charger works, and you make sure it connects to online. If you see 2124-4508, or as I've looked up, 2124-4007, both of them are error, and this is from Nintendo's website, error codes that indicate that the Switch console you are using has been permanently banned from connecting to the internet due to a breach of the user agreements. Now, it's very vague. A breach of user agreements may include, but is not limited to, activities such as fraudulent or unauthorized transactions or violation of the code of conduct. That's all it says. I don't have the time to go through the code of conduct right now. Mm-hmm. But if you see either of those codes when you turn this thing on and try to connect it to your internet, maybe through your phone as a hotspot, just, quickly, get out of there. You're like, no, this thing's bricked, doesn't work. I'm out of here. No. Diligence, yep. and intelligence will win the day here for you. Just be smart about it. And because people are very good at trying to get one over on their fellow man, just make sure you're not one of them.
Yep, exactly. And this is not all that new either. I guess if you've been buying stuff on a Craigslist or a Facebook Marketplace or whatever, you probably are a little savvy. You've dealt with stuff before. Always do those exchanges. And like where I used to live, there used to be a meetup point right outside the police station, which was really fun. You just go there and they're like, hey, we got cameras pointed at you everywhere, and we're right inside, so no problem. But even the Xbox 360 was a very common console to hack, and those eventually started getting banned from online. The exact same thing. This isn't some Nintendo being weird thing. This is a common move from these companies that goes all the way back to that, maybe even before. But I just remember it really happening with the 360 to the point where it was very difficult to navigate buying used 360s on a Craigslist back then. And I eventually did find one, but I had to go through and hey, we got to go in your house, connect this thing to the TV, turn it on and see that it works. And so, the people who have done this for a while will be used to this. It's just going to be Switch has a slightly different audience that maybe is a little bit more broad. And those people will have to either learn to navigate this or do as you said, have some patience, pay a little extra money, get those guarantees, get a warranty, get not even the extra store warranty, but just be guaranteed that your warranty is going to work from Nintendo and that you have a return policy. Those things can be huge for when you're spending that much money. You might as well spend the extra cash and just have that coverage and have that peace of mind.
Yep, for sure.
All right, forget Switch 2 game key cards. Full on the cart physical releases are what people want, says publisher Lost in Cult. This is from Damian McFerrin at Nintendo Life. It's fair to say that Switch 2 game key cards haven't gone down all that well with consumers. While Japanese video game consultancy firm Kios Incorporated insists that publishers are thanking Nintendo for the move following rising production costs of physical media, others are less keen on them. Almost 70% of you said you wouldn't be buying game key card releases, and many companies within the industry have said they dislike the approach. Game key cards are Nintendo's attempt to bridge the gap between code-in-a-box releases and traditional game cards. Basically, they're just a game code on a card so that people can put it in their system. It'll work. You have to download everything, but then you can hand the card to someone else or sell it on the secondhand market and get some money from it. But nothing of the game is on there, and eventually people are imagining 20 years from now this won't work at all. Who knows? But yeah. Lost in Cult's Ryan Brown, who has already spoken to us about the subject, has taken to social media to issue a rallying call to developers. People don't want game keycard releases, so if your studio is looking to produce a physical Switch 2 release, they should get in touch with the boutique publisher. Ryan T. Brown from Lost in Cult says, developer/publishers, talk to me. We'll give you full on-the-cart Switch 2 physical releases. It's what people want. It's what you want, and we can make it work for you. Hit me up. Do you think there could be a really, especially after this launch, where we heard that some of these physical games from third parties didn't maybe do quite as well? Do you think there will be a big rush back toward let's just bite the bullet and put as many games as we can on the full card so that we can get the benefits of people being like, I want to collect these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately, as much as I personally am okay with the game key card feature, I admittedly use it a little more because I have children, and I'm sure you would agree being able to pass the digital key card is convenient. The term game key cards kind of has this negative connotation around it at the moment, right? So you're going to get that groundswell of people that as soon as a publisher says game key card, they're going to start rabble rousing and being pissed off. So yeah, I think for the moment, maybe like the next year or so, if your game's coming out the next year and a half, let's say, you just go full card. You just put everything on the cartridge and you bite the bullet, as you said, and you basically see where it goes from there. Is there a way to do both options right out of the gate? I don't know. I think they would prefer the one or the other approach. So then, yeah, you would have to go with the full Switch 2 cartridge, because I just don't, until more people use the technology and see what it can do and see how it can benefit. I think that the term kind of has this hex around it that is turning people off. Because let's face it, most of the hardcore crowd, they don't need to share their game key cards because they don't have no one to share it with. They're just on their own consoles. Their friends have their consoles with their games on them. They don't need to use this. So I think you're right that on the cart, physical releases are the way to go, especially in the third party sector, for perhaps as long as the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I think Ryan T. Brown from Lost and Cult sort of like being, hey, we're the solution. I mean, obviously that's to his benefit, but I do think he's also not wrong. Where if you are someone that wants a physical game that is on the card as someone who produces games, going the boutique route probably is going to be the answer. Where like you talked about doing both, right? Maybe like the game launches on a game key card standard because that's the most affordable and logical option for a lot of these situations, and then quickly you work with a boutique outlet, whether it's Lost and Cult, which looks like they're going to do some awesome work in terms of their packaging and stuff. It looked really nice. You go that route, it'll be like, okay, now here is the $70-$80 version of the game with a really cool look, and it has the full game on the card, and that's something you really care about as a collector. Well, now here's the collector's edition. I just think this probably is the route, even though, of course, that's, again, to Mr. Brown's benefit here. I just don't think he's wrong necessarily. So, is that a pain? Yeah. And is Nintendo going to put any of their games on game key cards? No, doesn't seem like it. So, and like, will Nintendo make the slightly smaller versions of its cards available that aren't the 64 gigabyte, very expensive ones? I guess there's rumors going around that like that's $16 or something like that for a 64 gigabyte card for each single one that you produce, which is a lot more than the pennies it costs to produce like a Blu-ray these days. That's rough stuff. So I get why publishers are like, no way, that's so much of our profit margin. But if you can sort of make it make sense, I guess maybe even $80 doesn't make sense for the Lost and Cult version at some point. Yeah. But there are people who really want this stuff as a collector's item. I just don't think it's a big enough audience to like completely do away with game key cards. But yeah, there's an answer here, something in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle, they'll figure it out. And as you said, as the last bullet point on the article here, Nintendo itself has said it will not be using game key cards for any of its first-party games. So if they're not, how can they? It just gives third-party publishers and developers more of a argument to be like, well, if you're not using your own technology, then what the hell? Why do we have to use it? And then they can go this boutique route. But then you wonder, based on our previous story about the MiGs, if Lost and Cult's not getting their cartridges from Nintendo, could the Switch 2 then mistake the?
I think they are. I think they are getting it from Nintendo. It's just I think they're saying we could find a way to make it make sense. And to me, that sounds like Lost and Cult's physical games. For people that don't know, they look like Criterion Collection. Like they have really cool art and specialized boxes that aren't just like the typical plastic Switch 2 boxes. And so they're going to be like, the way we'll make it make sense is we're going to do a lot of extra effort. so people don't think about the fact that they're paying extra to make up for that $16 that it costs to put this thing on a 64 gigabyte card.
Sure.
Sure. I think that's, again, I think that's fair. Ideally, though, we get to a point where 8 and 16 gigabyte cards are readily available to third parties. So if your game is small enough, it could just go on there. And if your game is massive, it was always going to go on a game key card, and you might as well just do it that way anyhow.
True.
All right, let's see. Man, it's just 64 gigabyte. The 64 gigabyte cards being that expensive just means that we probably will go this entire generation without having 128-bit cards or whatever, something big enough for like most modern games. And God, how expensive would those be? Probably, the $45.
All of the profit margin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the entire price of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sega accidentally leaked 6 years of sales data for some of their games. Sega did an oopsie. This is everywhere, but I found this on Reddit. And in this Reddit post says, now you can weaponize these numbers in irrelevant fan wars or something. All right. So Persona 5 Royal. That's a game that did very well, Jason. Apparently these sales do not include any of the sales for the original Persona 5. In its first fiscal year, it did 1.03 million. Then 700,000. This is like annual sales. Then 300,000 or 350,000. Then 1.82 million in its fourth year. 1.6 million in its fifth year. 1.75 million in its sixth year. Yeah, fifth and sixth year. Yeah. So it did a total of 7.25 million in sales just for Royal. That's got to be like it going to Switch and PC and stuff. I mean, I don't know. You said you're looking up?
I am. So it hit PS4 worldwide March 31st, 2020. It hit Switch, PS5, PC, and Xbox on October 21st, 2022. So that would explain fiscal year 2023 being so absurd, plus 24 and 25, just more ubiquity for Persona 5 Royal. Does make sense. And 7.25 million copies of Persona. People do like their Persona, don't they?
It's also like, okay, this thing had its best year in 2020 or fiscal 2023, but then it did not miss much of a beat. Like it did better than its launch year. Obviously, that's just one platform versus all these other platforms. But whatever, money's money. It did better in the last 3 years than it did in that launch year. What do you need a Persona 6 for? Like maybe you should just keep selling Persona 5 Royal for a while because it's doing just fine. Now, obviously, sales, discounted price, like all that stuff should be factored into how much money they're actually making from all this. But I at a certain point, 1.75 million at $30 versus $60, whatever it is still a ton of money.
That's true.
But yeah, you kind of see at a certain point why they are taking their time, letting Persona 5 fully breathe, even though it's been a very long time since that game originally came out, because it's doing just fine, and that gives them time to, really reload with Persona 6. And then, of course, they had the other game last year that the name is slipping my mind.
It also sort of a metaphor, Rifatasio.
Thank you.
It also sort of informs how in the marketing, showcase and stuff like that, how Sega Atlas and Xbox have been a little more cozy. I think they expected a bump in sales when it hit those other platforms. I don't think they expected 350K in fiscal year 22 to 1.82 million in fiscal year 2023. So when they saw that, and they saw, because PS5, Nintendo Switch, sure, but also PC and both Xbox consoles, that's a lot of Microsoft they weren't counting on. I'm assuming that's where Phil and his friends were able to swoop in and be like, hey, see, this is a viable platform for you. You should come hang out with us more often. And then you see the appeal of that from there. Very impressive stuff.
Sega definitely behaves that way, where it's like, we've had a good experience working with Xbox. We're going to keep doing that. Yeah, I think you're right. We've definitely seen that. Sonic Frontiers did a total of 4.57 million, with 3.2 million in its first year. And now it's doing about 720 and 610 in the following years. Team Sonic Racing's at 3.5 million. Total War, Three Kingdoms, I believe, is at 3.2 million. That's very good. It continues to that one's just regularly trending down, but it had a very good launch and has been selling. It did 70,000 last year versus 2.1 million in its first year. Yakuza Like a Dragon did 2.86 million. It did 450,000 its first fiscal year, then 720,000 the year after, and it's had, up and down depending on like whether or not a new platform is released or something like that. It did 680,000 in fiscal year 24, and then 360,000 in fiscal year 25. Sonic Superstars did 2.4 million. Total War Warhammer 3 did 2.3. Shimigami Tensei 5. This includes both 5 and Vengeance, I think.
Okay. Yep. The Switch one?
Yeah, the Switch one. It did 2.1 million. So it was 990,000, 150,000, 100,000, then 960,000.
Wow.
Persona 3 Reload is at 2 million already. Infinite Wealth is at 1.6 million. And Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, is at 960,000 total. I it's kind of like, man, I hope Infinite Wealth does better over time. I bet that game is one of these ones that, as it shows up on Switch 2, things like that, easily could see another one of those bumps of like, oh, year 3 actually was way better than year 2 or something like that. We get these kinds of numbers from companies like Nintendo, who are like a little bit more open with their investors. We don't see this a lot from other publishers. But like now that I see these numbers, Jason, a lot of Sega's choices make sense to me. Like I kind of get why they do what they do. And it's like, yeah, I really appreciate having that insight. I suppose what we could say is now we can kind of figure that, like, use that logically, and in the future, when a publisher does make a certain decision, probably assume that the numbers reflect that.
Right.
But yeah, do you have any other insight into this?
Sonic fans are just as rabid as they've ever been. 3.2 million for Sonic Frontiers in that launch year. That's pretty impressive. Ichiban Kasuga is apparently very popular because 450K for Yakuza 7, 1.18 million for Infinite Wealth in year 1. So that's also very, very cool. I think we'll see. I think that'll hit over 2 million by the time it hits Switch 2 and any other consoles it may hit. Now, the Post said it leaked sales data for some of its games. That means some might be left out here. I find that a interesting omission from this list is Metaphor that you mentioned earlier, because that game was so critically acclaimed. Although I guess technically we're only right at the end of fiscal year 25, so maybe they hadn't gotten that data yet or just wasn't part of the leak. But I would like to see where an original Atlas game that's not Persona fits in this list, just riding on the pedigree of the studio that created it. But no, I do like seeing Total War up here as well. That is a franchise that kind of sits on my periphery, just not being a PC-centric guy, not being a strategy guy. I know it's always there, and I always find it interesting. It's just not something that I normally like think about or remember. I don't always think about the Total War Roman Empire. It's not what I do, but I like that it's here. I like that the fans are getting the games that they want here too. 3.2 million for Three Kingdoms and 2.3 million for Warhammer 3. That's very impressive. You have to like Sega kind of fits in that Capcom space right now, where they're just kind of doing what they're doing. They're making the games that they want to make. If people like them, great. If not, just on to the next one. You got another Sonic Racing coming out this year, which gets more and more insane. The things that they, as they make announcements for it, loved that demo at Summer Games Fest.
Yeah,
I'm
me
sure if
too.
you had a chance to play it. I thought that played really, really cool. An interesting alternative for Mario Kart. Once the Mario Kart World dies down, that's going to swoop right in September. I think that's going to fill that niche. It could be very successful. It's good, healthy numbers that you want to see from a game developer, with all the doom and gloom and deserved, layoffs and things like that, things that people are obviously worried about. Sometimes it's just nice to see that a company that's been around a while is selling video games, and that's what this is.
Yep. Just as a comparison, a Persona 5 Royal on Steam has about 70,000 reviews. Metaphor Refantasio has 20,000 reviews.
Okay.
The estimator stuff on like SteamDB has Metaphor around 1 million copies sold. The average for Persona 5 is around 2.5 to 3 million. This is just on Steam. So it's like, yeah, that kind of lines up with kind of these numbers that we get leaked here. And probably if you try to algorithmically figure out how well Metaphor is doing based on some of this data, you can probably piece it together a little bit. But it's like, yeah, for a game that just kind of popped up out of nowhere from Atlas, a new one, seems like it really kind of immediately is doing better than a lot of these other games from Sega. So I think
we got a fella in Twitch chat checking in. Some guy named Tokato.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. 2 million announced for Metaphor at least. Separately, which is great. And then I'm getting made fun of in chat here. Magic the Gathering is Jason Fanelli's Holy Roman Empire, and shut up, dumb kid.
We know, that's right. All right, let's see here. Expedition 33 actor felt like a total fraud after the game became a massive success. Basically, Charlie Cox is like, I went for half a day and recorded my voices after my agent's like, hey, do you want to do VO for a game? He's like, well, I don't play games. So eventually someone told me, someone came to me and said, hey, that game was awesome. You're great in it. He's like, wait, what? And he said, like, I felt like a total fraud because now people keep doing that. And I had no idea. It's like, I just did a little bit of work and I'm just happy for that studio. I'm really happy to be involved. But it's like, yeah, that's got to be a little weird. I mean, I don't know if I believe him. Half a day's of work to like get all that VO, but I don't know. I guess I don't know what that process is like. Maybe that's true. Either way, I'm sure like it was just a couple of days if it was more than that. So it probably felt like a very short experience. And then to find out it had such a massive effect has to be a weird thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall the first time someone was like, oh, I loved him, and have him be like, wait, what? I would have loved to have seen that reaction play out in real time. If he was only in the studio for 4 hours for that amount of voice acting, power to him, right? Like that's pretty wild. And power to Sandfall, excuse me, Sandfall. I did Magic the Gathering again. Sandfall Interactive. If they're able to make it only 4 hours long, that process, we may need to do a deep dive into their development situation here, because not only are they improving on potential VO times. And again, I'm dumb to it too, so I don't know what goes into it. But like they came out with this game with their limited studio. I don't know how much the number is. I'm not going to prognosticate. But however many people worked on this game, it came out and just floored everyone. And now we're finding out that they're really efficient with their VO. What else are they doing? And how can they help everyone in the game industry become more efficient? Wow. But back to Charlie Cox. I hope this convinces him to do more VO, right? Like for him to think it was just like a 1-2 session, 4 hours, whatever it was, and then have this effect on people to the point where he feels like a fraud. Wow, like good for him, and I hope it can. Yeah, good.
And there's zero complaints about the VO. In fact, there's just nothing but praise out there for the acting.
Exactly.
Like, and apparently, a Skill Up like talked to Ben Starr and Jen English, and they both said quickest VO work they've ever done as far as lines per hour recorded. So it's like that was just a common thing. And you play that game, and it's not like, oh, the lack of effort is apparent. No, it's not like that at all. So very cool stuff.
Maybe it's just good direction.
Yeah, I mean, if you know what you're doing, you don't really need that much time. That's my motto. MindsEye maker reportedly facing mass layoff as players seek refunds. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say about this story other than like, it was always a weird studio. That much money being poured into a new effort to make a GTA like, and then to release something that is a fraction of what GTA 3 even was in terms of your ability to do stuff in the world. Feels like mismanagement. I do think that the co-CEO somewhere else, I don't know if it's here in this story, but I guess accused his developers of being lazy and incompetent, which is just a bad look.
Yeah,
it's worse than a bad look, right?
That's the
it's
worst
like criminal.
Look.
Yeah. Like,
the very
take him
last
outside and beat him with a rubber hose kind of thing, like that.
Just prior to launch, Builder Rocket Boy CEO accused naysayers of being paid bots, and both the chief legal and financial officers of the company. Oh no, that's something else. So he mocked his. Oh God. Oh no.
Let me see here.
See if you can find that while I kind of absorb. Oh, Jesus.
MindsEye co-CEO supposedly slams devs as lazy and incompetent. This is from Game Reactor's Marcus. The madness surrounding MindsEye, one of this year's most bizarre, blah, blah, blah. Former employees have already described a dreadful and at times outright toxic work environment where games are developed like it's still 2005 and upper management refuses to listen to anyone below them. And as if that weren't enough, one of the top execs has now blamed the workers for being lazy and incompetent. The statement reportedly came from Mark Gerhard, a close ally of former Grand Theft Auto producer Leslie the Benzies and co-CEO of Build a Rocket Boy. It follows other reports that the internal atmosphere has soured dramatically post-launch, somehow turning even more negative. This lines up with many statements found on sites like Glassdoor, which people have been going through and finding a lot of interesting things being said about the studio. But yeah, that's the information we have here. It doesn't
Jeff,
really say where that came from.
Jeff, going back to Sandfall, maybe the secret is just people loving what they do, huh?
And caring for every little detail about it so that the management does feel cohesive and well thought out and executed in a way that is humane.
Maybe just general respect for your fellow man is what gets a great game like Claire Obscure made, and not someone like this guy. You said he looked him up on Glassdoor. They probably want to throw his ass out the Glassdoor.
Defenestrate his ass. That's right.
Defenestrate the motherfucker. That's right. I cannot believe. How does IO? Somebody brought this up in chat over here. How does IO feel about all this? They gave them 1/3 of their we wanted E3 cringe back, so we brought it ourselves showcase, the Monday night of SGF. A whole third of their show was MindsEye. What? They got to be like, what? That we got to fix our what's the word I'm looking for? Vetting process. Thank you. We got to make sure that these guys are on the level, because what the hell just happened over there? The Benz had a flat tire, maybe two, and now all these people who went to work for him, who have been suffering enough, it sounds like, are being mercifully brought back into the labor force, and because is the trend, may not come back to video games because of their experience. It's depressing.
Yep. We'll wrap up the headlines here in a second, but it's frustrating. And you know what, Leslie Benzies, it was cute, the whole Benz thing and all that stuff. But this is it, man. You burned it. I don't want to hear it anymore. Take all the money you got from Rockstar, from the settlement or lawsuit, I can't remember, and get the fuck out. We don't need this anymore. Your game sucks. Nope. All this stuff is this sideshow clown business. Get out of here. We're like, 2005 is right. This feels like mid 2000s management, like a dictatorial bullshit. And there's no place for it anymore. There's too many cool people making too many cool games for us to give that much more oxygen to this. So I'm done with MindsEye. I hope the people that worked on the game can get out of there and find work. But yeah, fuck off. All right. Let's see here. Poll question from last week. When do you think Metroid Prime 4 is out? Summer, fall, or holiday? 8% think it's going to be out this summer. 41% think it's out this fall, and 51% think it's out during the holiday season. Now, exactly what those look like to anyone or what you think those mean, I don't know, but most people are thinking later rather than sooner.
Sorry, I'll never forget the first comment on the poll that said Jeff too scared to put 2026 on the poll, even though that would acknowledge that Dan was right.
Listen, we just can't. All right, we can't deal with that.
I actually voted fall because they seem to like putting out one game a month, right? And there's that September window. I don't think they have anything in September at the moment. I know
there's some things that still don't have dates, like Kirby's Air Riders, but that's like a December game. It feels like.
Sure, that feels like a December game for sure. And Pokemon's there in October, which is also kind of putting like a roadblock into that sort of holiday lineup thing, trying to figure out where Metroid fits. I also wouldn't be surprised if it's late August, because that's a common Metroid release place. Yeah. I don't know if you remember Other M in 2010 came out in late August. And I think Trilogy was around that time as well, the prior year or the year after.
That sounds right.
So maybe mid to late August, just as school's coming back, give the kids and the teens something to do after a long day at school. Go fight some more Chozos or whatever we're going to do in Metroid Prime 4. But yeah, I'm thinking somewhere in the late August to October window, early October window, which would put it in fall.
Yep, sounds good. We have a new poll question. We'll get to that here in a second. In the meantime, Jason Fanelli, tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, all that good stuff.
I am at Big Man Fanelli on all social media. If there is a social media platform I am on, that is the name. Just had a preview go up right before we came on for Shadow Labyrinth, the Metroidvania slash total lore dump for all of Bandai Namco history. It turns out there's a 40-year timeline of all of their games that has been maintained by them secretly, according to them, behind the scenes, that is now online. I linked to it in my preview over on GameSpot. And that game, that game could be one of those, like, what the fuck is going on in this thing? It's full of references to their lore. Like, as I was playing this demo, there's this tribe of friendly people that the hooded swordsman and Puck run into. They're called the Bosconians, which is an old Bandai Namco game. There's a reference to a potential bad guy named Emperor Galaga. There's the Queen of the Bosconians refers to my character as a Galaxian. Puck,
the
name of the Pac-Man robot, Puck, is a reference to Pac-Man's original name, Puckman, which was changed before it came over to America. There are enemies in the demo that look like wild out Pukas and Figars from Dig Dug. One of the bosses was named Jen with fucking hockey mask on. They reference Splatterhouse.
Yeah.
It is wild stuff. I could not believe. Oh, and the other boss that we fought was called G-Host, and it was this robot with a pink ghost attached to it. What is this game? It is going. It's one of these games that people are going to play it and be like, what the fuck is going on here? There were moments in this demo that I don't think I was supposed to see, that, like, I didn't reference them in my piece. Your secret's safe with me so far, Bandai. But,
except for Tom on this show.
No. But, like, eyebrows were raised. That's all I'll say. Eyebrows were raised about things that were said, and I'm so shocked. Like, I thought we were just going to get like a Metroidvania that followed up on Amazon Prime, but it turns out Bandai Namco's just like, here's all our lore. Do what you want with it. And yeah, it's fucking wild. So yeah, you can go read that on GameSpot right now. Still have 3 Summer Games Fest promos for coming to MMORPG soon. I've been kind of behind. I know I mentioned at the beginning of the show that Thursday night I missed my flight to MagicCon. It also knocked out my internet until 20 minutes before this show started. It came out,
really?
It came out right. I was going to do this show on my phone.
Yeah.
Propped up right here because I told you I'd be on it. I assumed that the internet would be back already, and the internet gods blessed me. 20 minutes before the show started, we came back. So yeah, so I still owe those previews there. It's Wuchang Fallen Feathers, which, spoiler alert, it's just going to be talking about how that game kicked my ass for 30 minutes. What the hell else do I owe him? Oh God. Sonic, that's not a Shinobi. Shinobi was very cool.
That's great.
And the third one eludes me at the moment, but I'll remember by the time I write it. Yeah, so a lot of good stuff going on there. And then, I probably will go, if you're following me on social media, get ready for Disney posts. I want to go full Mike Minotti. Thursday night, we're going to Fort Lauderdale to visit my in-laws for 2 days, and then we're driving from Fort Lauderdale to Disney World Sunday to Thursday. Wednesday is my wife's birthday, July the 2nd, and we will be in Magic Kingdom all day. Breakfast with the Princesses, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique for the girls, and just doing the Magic Kingdom thing all day long. We're not going to the Rainforest Cafe, so maybe I won't go full Mike Minotti, but
never go full Mike Minotti. That's right.
Full Mike Minotti. But yeah, so that'll be fun. So once I get back from that, couple things hopefully in the pipeline. Evo is around the corner. We'll see what's happening there, and if I make it out to Vegas for that. Yeah, just living the dream, man, one day at a time.
It sounds fantastic. That's awesome. Looking forward to you having a good time at Disney. All right. New poll question. Are you going to play Death Stranding 2? Yes or no? Poll question will go up on YouTube. You go to youtube.com/@giantbomb. You go to the post tab there. You can find it. You can vote. We'll get the results. We'll talk about it on Wednesday's show. Tomorrow's the Bombcast. Talk about it on Wednesday here on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, in a little bit, we have Monday Morning Mist with Mitch. That's how we say it around here. We're going to do some mwah. And then later tonight, it's Monday evening gaming at Mike's at night. Mega Man returns from the ether for the first time ever. Definitely check out both those things. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll be hanging out with Mike for both, I think.
It needs a theme song. Super Fighting Tocado.
There it is.
Mega Man.
Jason Fanelli, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, my dude. Go take a nap, will you?
I'm gonna try. I got a bunch of shit I gotta do today. Thank you all for watching and listening. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
Yummy like a gummy bear.